I grew up in Pennsylvania. My father worked at the steel mill. Mom was stay-at-home mom. They eventually did divorce, but Dad stayed until I was gone. I was the youngest. I have one brother. Mother could not have managed, protected. It would have been an awful thing. I had total freedom to do almost anything I wanted to do because Mother was incapable of supervising and Dad was working. I could go anywhere for dinner. I'd go and see what people were having and decide where I was going to eat. You know, it was the summer before I started school, so I was 5, and it was Easter time, and my best friend lived 2 yards away, and there were no fences or anything. We just cut through yards and went to the house we wanted to be to. I was over there, and she said, "You know what tomorrow is?" And I said, "No." Well, I did know. I told her, "Yeah, it's Easter." And she says, "You know what that means?" And I said, "Yep, we get candy." And she said, "No, that's not the meaning of Easter." So she told me the story of what our Savior did for us. And I remember just crying and crying, and I made her cry, and I couldn't stop crying, and finally I just ran home and down the hill, and I just started into the Panzeri's yard, and there's 2 yards to get through to get to my house. And she came out on top of the hill and she yelled, "But it's okay, he lived." And so I went home and I asked my mother, I cried and told my mother the story I heard, and I wanted to know if it was true. And she said, "Well, everybody knows that." But I didn't know, you know. I mean, I was a little child, but there was none of that. And for a while, my parents went to the Baptist church around the corner. I had been going to a lot of churches. I went in the Bible schools I went to, whatever. I just went with whoever would take me, you know. And they generally divided it up, the different churches, so you could go almost all summer, you know. And I would go to this one, and then when that one finished, I'd find another friend and I'd go with them. In the meanwhile, I attended the Methodist young people's group as I went into my teens, and I just went different places and different things and learned different perspectives. And I'd ask the ministers and the teachers and the group leaders or whoever they were, you know, different questions, and they all would give different answers. And so I finally when I came to the conclusion I'd probably join the Catholic Church. I thought, well, they're perfectly, because I kept thinking there must be a true church. Which one is true? And none of them were. So I decided I would just join the Catholic Church when I came of age. But then my aunt joined the church, and I heard that she was a Mormon. Well, I'd never been to that church. So I decided I'd go. So I called my Aunt Sue and asked her if I could go with her, and who knew, she was delighted. So I went with her to church, and it was in the garage, a family's garage, oil stains still on the floor, a bench and some folding chairs and one little pulpit, you know. That's what the church was. But when I came in that building, there was a different feeling there that I had not felt anywhere else before. And I didn't know what it was. I had felt promptings before, but I kind of thought I might be psychic. I had no explanation for it. And but there was something special happening there. So anyway, on the way out, I took, there was pamphlets and a little, you know, thing beside the door, and I took one of each. And I went home and I went upstairs into my room, and I was laying on the floor. But I was laying there reading those pamphlets, and they answered every question I had, everything I'd been asking people for probably 4 or 5 years. They answered it. All of it was in there. And one of the questions I had was, why is there no prophets? That's told me there wasn't a true one because there were no prophets. So when they said they had a prophet, I just lay there and cried, and I knew it was true. I knew it was true right then. And it took me a few days to get up my nerve to call my aunt and ask if I could go with her again, because I knew it was out of her way to go to church, to come pick me up and then go back to where the church was meeting. I didn't expect any argument, so when I was going to get baptized, I just told him I'm going to get baptized, and he said, "No, you're not." And I said, "Yes, I am." And he said, "No, you're not. I told you no." And it was not a word he ever used. And I thought, and this is the thing you're going to give me a no on? You know, I couldn't. I was at that, 16-year-old age, and you already know everything when you're 16. And I insisted, and finally he said, well, you're not even going to go back to that church anymore. And that's when I realized that probably wasn't the best way I should have handled that. And I didn't know what I was going to do, So I stomped up to my room and slammed the door like a 16-year-old. And then I started praying. And I said, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I just had this feeling of peace. All will be well, don't worry. And I thought, okay. I couldn't see how that was going to come about, truthfully. And my dad, like I said, he worked the shift work, but no matter what shift he was on, if he was home at 7 o'clock, he got up. And if he just always got up at 7. Well, Sunday morning came open, and nobody went downstairs. Not my mom, not my dad, anybody. And I quietly said, okay, I just had a little talk there with the Lord. So I guess I'm going to go, but I'm going to, he's going to kill me. I went to church and I got home and the house was perfectly quiet. I came in, went up the stairs, shut the door to my room, and I heard my parents get up and go downstairs. Now, that was a miracle. That was a miracle. Now, whether the miracle was that they actually slept all that time, or whether Dad just decided that he didn't need to do that, I don't know. So this went on for like 10 weeks. Every Sunday, they didn't get up, and every Tuesday, I went to Mutual. I went to Sunday school and Mutual for those weeks. Any moment, I'm thinking, this is going to end, And finally it did end, and Dad just came up to me and said, I was wrong. I should not have forbidden you to go to any church. He said, you were right. You could go with my permission. The next Sunday morning, they got up like they normally did, and everything was normal. So I went, and I learned and I grew. They gave me callings even though I wasn't baptized. They let me do all sorts of things. Like I said, I was teaching primary when I was 14 and my class was 12. I'd be walking down the street and somebody would say to me, you look so happy. What's going on? I said, let me tell you, and would you like to go with me? And they came. And they would come, and then they'd bring, can I bring? Sure, and we'd all, my Aunt Sue, bless her heart, she did a lot of transporting for all these kids. But she smiled and said, bring them on. I just was so happy with what I had found that I wanted to share that with them. And like I said, it changed lives, but mine most of all. And even the sharing of it changed my life more maybe than some of those that I shared it with. Anyway, so that was one of the miracles in my life.